Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Blurred Lens Pictures, and I'm Brent Norrie, and welcome back to our series we're doing here on the new novel that I'm writing, The Flower Maker. And we've been just doing a reading series here, carrying along as I'm writing the novel. And we've got a bunch to get into today. There is one part where I'm going to stop and explain a little bit about what's going on because we're doing a little postmodernist kind of like joke in the middle of this. I put a couple links in the bottom in the description, so you can check out the whole playlist if you haven't. And there's also going to be the link to the essay that's in the middle of here. That it's kind of like a little break that happens, um, and I'll explain that kind of when we get there. I'd like to jump right into it though. Hopefully you've been following along, so you already know where we're up to. We're up to chapter 9 right now. Um, and we've gotten pretty far into this thing, so I mean, we're getting there. Hopefully, if you haven't caught on yet, again, the link is in the description, and you can start from the beginning and follow along as the whole thing is being written. And welcome back to everyone that shows up. All right, we're going to start right we're on to chapter 9 of The Flower Maker by Brent Norrie. Chapter 9, Inside the Book. The idea suddenly struck the artist. He knew exactly what the mad scientist was up to, and it was shocking to even himself. And he couldn't let the beekeeper know yet, nor I let you. The flower was extraordinary, maybe an infinite being. He was seeing himself inside the beekeeper and the flower maker's minds, moving them wonderfully across the labyrinth of his own mindscape. Blocks of platonic shapes were fitting their known notches. The beekeeper would have to find something in the doctor's paperwork to solve the flower riddle, something about all of space and time and matter. The artist had the chill again when something he was working on seemed in some way not to be his anymore, but alive in its own thing that grows. And there was a gust of wind at the same moment, and he was afraid the idea would escape him. The flower maker would have to make a speech from his essay on the unnatural. This is when the artist really discovered that his past work was taking hold of his future, and he was sort of along for the ride. He had discovered something about himself in the search for the scientist's secret flower, something he knew from the beginning, something in the papers and the design of a novel, adding his old pieces to it, and the words in the words of his characters, making it difficult enough for those who demand it. But he was an idealist or a romantic, a realist surrealist. He could see the flickering tiptoe light casting its dance on all the objects. He could see the mystery of the greenhouse and the thing within. The artist knew it now, and I promised to keep it a secret along with him. I can only tell you, and you'll have to believe me when I tell you, that the flower was the most gorgeous thing you could ever imagine. And I suppose I could tell you that the beekeeper's life was at stake. The artist still felt he had to kill him in the end. He had no idea what was about to hit him. The artist began working on a way to save the beekeeper's life. Was it cliché to get away with the damsel, or was it obvious for the tragic killing inside the mansion? A bit of who's gonna do it. Most obviously the doctor, but maybe the flower, or Maris herself in some psychotic turncoat rage still under the doctor's spell. He'd have to discover what was in the greenhouse, and it would happen the next time he was called to the mansion. He would walk into the scientist's study and find him there as usual, musing to himself of some absurd thing or other. And this time the doctor would try to relate some of his work to the beekeeper in hopes he would understand. He had written an essay on unnatural things and the meaning of such a concept, and the beekeeper would listen to the lecture of a man he now thought mad. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10. A Madman's Essay. Beep. See index. All right, so this is where I'll stop and explain what's going on. In chapter 10, we're going to go into like sort of a blank page that sends you to the index of the book, the back of the book. And that's where you'll find the doctor's essay is going to be in the back of the book. And so that's kind of it's going to do a couple of tricks. It's going to show you that the ending of the book really isn't at the end of the book, and that you can stop and go and read the essay, which is kind of the designed way to do it, to read chapter 10 if you want to. But this is also another thing that I'm throwing into, that you don't have to read this. You could skip this part. It's not that important to the story to carry on. But the essay is a fun little kind of essay that this mad scientist has on unnatural things. So you can find that essay in the description of this video. I put it in there. And I'm actually thinking of doing that with the actual beginning of the book, where the neighbor has this like screaming prophetic poetry. I might put that as index 1, and this might be index 2. And that way, kind of readers that come along, they'll either be in on it or not in on it when it comes to the ending of the book. They might get to the end of the book and think there's still like 30 pages to go. And that's really the index. But hopefully this is pretty obvious. Chapter 10 is going to be a blank page that says beep, see index for the madman's essay. Anyways, we're going to skip that. If you want to go back to it, again, it's in the description for the link. Hey, everyone in the chat that's shown up, appreciate y'all. What do we got here? Department of Internal Affairs, I'm watching you. Okay, that's fantastic. Rollins. Welcome, Alan Hernandez. Hey, what's up? Disgusting Clan. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Hey, how's it going? Quit, Unc. Oh, man, people keep calling me old, man. That's all right. I'm getting there. Believe me on that one. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hit like and subscribe. We're carrying on. Chapter 11 of The Flower Maker by Brent Norrie. Chapter 11, Inside the Book, Part 2. The beekeeper exhaled, wondering if the speech was over, still sort of thinking on the first few lines and how it all worked together in the seeming jumble. Maybe the doctor was onto something and not mad at all. Maybe the doctor was onto something and not all mad. But most likely, this event only confirmed the beekeeper's suspicions, and he thought of getting Maris away from this place. He didn't need the flower or the bee, maybe just Maris. And he looked out the window of the study, which faced the courtyard where the greenhouse was, and Stellan saw Maris standing by the greenhouse door. Her image was a bit blurred due to the rain running down the glass and frame. She disappeared into the greenhouse. The artist thought she might have a flowing floral pattern dress, but the beekeeper had seen her wearing boots, gloves, with a shovel, and gardening attire on. He thought that today should be the day he finally sees what's going on in there. He was tired of killing bees and wasting time. What was Dr. Schmela really up to? There was something ugly about it, something he couldn't get past, both the artist and the beekeeper, and maybe the scientist too. It was the idea of perfect and what it could be. Maybe not possible, but in the hands of this God. Maris came out of the greenhouse, and Stellan thought she looked as though she was crying. The artist had an idea for the name of the flower. It should be opposite of what one might think, and hence give it some thought and weight. The scientist had just discovered it too. He thought the beekeeper should know the name, both the scientist and the artist. And I think you should know it too, for we might have to take a break from this room and the destiny awaiting in the greenhouse. And so the scientist stood up and declared it profusely. I have it! And glared at the beekeeper, eyelids raised to the ceiling showing the whites. It shall be called the mundane, or the boredom mundane, and the French shall call it ennui. And the beekeeper sat even more confused. You shall call what? I shall call the flower the mundane. It has a certain ring to it. Is that to reference all the things it's made of? Yes, exactly, in a perverse sense of irony. The doctor lifted his chin, nose, and eyes to the ceiling. That the most beautiful thing of all should be called the mundane. How wonderful! It reminds me of Marlin and that snail on a razor. The beekeeper's stomach churned as though an apocalypse was happening inside of him. Was he some sort of Martin Sheen or Dennis Hopper? And the doctor some cult leader dressed in black, spouting some harsh truths? Was Maris a Valkyrie leading him to Valhalla? Well, the beekeeper wasn't much of a warrior, more of a geek per se, but had grown into himself as a man and kept in shape with his beekeeping and nature habits. He could surely take the doctor in a fight if need be. The thought ran through his mind. He'd need no axe to subdue this creature, which is what the doctor was beginning to look like in his mind. End of chapter 11. All right, we're on to chapter 12. I don't have a name for this one yet. Thanks everyone for tuning in. How something so simple as a woodpecker to draw my gaze and wonder. What are you looking for? Oh, to be so simple as a critter diving into grains of time through the elms and oaks and pines and maples. Leave not out the white birch in her creeping beauty, whose autumn leaves hang like some designer top. The trees have it figured out, but lie under the bruised thumb of the hammerer. Nail you into some structure ordained by them, the forever them and the they, who wield and who worry and who worship. It speaks to them in the park constantly for those who can hear it. It longs to be known through you. You are a daily gift you give yourself, and it's there, always, to be unwrapped and seen and shown, held up as the perfect thing, the most shining, the thing in between all the things and the things, the now, or so it seems. There it is again. And the birds are chirping, keeping guard and planning attacks for stealing lunches, and the grass was growing ever so slightly. The artist took his mind off the beekeeper for the moment and was back to the 3D world, but only on the surface, as the thought of his art show's creeping premiere set in, a point of doom. There was no turning back, and he'd have to appear at his own making. It will be nothing. And I should enjoy it, For my friends will be coming, people who've already seen what I'm doing. Yes, what I'm doing. I know, but they don't know. But I don't really know a thing. In trying to describe a thing, I only get lost in the other things, and they branch out or find roots which find depths, and I'm forever pulled into. Even if I were to write the flower maker, the institutions would ignore the thing, and without finance to publish, it would remain obscure, and I have to probably self publish and send out to known readers in hopes of sharing the flower. I know the mad scientist is up to something. I've seen inside of his mind. I am his creator, after all. He was pitying himself again, he thought. How often would he have an art showing? Even if it was old work. R.A. was involved, and Lavender, Panda, now Flower, had always provoked him to have a real showing. And so had others, such as his bandmates A and A. One, a classic rock and country guy, and the other, a connoisseur of metal. The metalhead was the drummer. The band was known to turn a slow ballad pop song into a punk rock blues experimental epic, a band of gypsies in their own minds. Though they got together and played less and less these days. It could be up to 6 months or a year between sessions, and a drinking night would ensue with a band with no real bass player, a stack of pedals before each guitarist, and the nickname Andy the Animal behind them playing a combination Bonham, Moon, Ringo, King Fowley feel to the percussion. And in those spaces of sounds and notes, the freedom of human spirit engulfed the room for the practicing three, a three never to play anywhere other than there. And R.A. would be in charge of the music tonight, which meant probably 80s one-hit wonders and dance music. Something about that had made her an early Nine Inch Nails fan. He had just remembered hearing Head Like a Hole over and over as he rode around getting car sick while his babysitter cousin met up with her weird-haired boyfriend. Why didn't people like the Beatles anymore? He would find would be a reoccurring thought he would have. People hated Give My Regards, but No More Lonely Nights had been his first favorite song during his parents' divorce, and Tutti Frutti seemed also really good. He believed in them, the musicians who could really show the thing in itself. Dionysian, perhaps, but truthful to something. He was always jealous of people who knew more about music. They could remember everyone's names. But he grew up with CDs, and guitar was a thing he was afraid of. It would consume him, and so would music if he tried to theorize it. The one good thing he could say about his stepfather is that he had decent taste in music and kept a decent stereo system. His real father had better taste with the Stones and Sabbath and Kiss and New Wave. And his father fancied himself a John Lennon of sorts, combined with the cooler king of The Great Escape, Frank Zappa, or a lost Ramones brother. Concerts had been a special thing his father and sister would do. They had seen Poison and Aerosmith, and she had been a teacher to him of all cool things from the 60s. Well, that and movies. He constantly watched movies to the point where the real world didn't make sense. He wouldn't learn about international films for years in an obsession binge after Flower. But the American 70s fascinated him to no end. How could he write a screenplay so he could make a classic? How do you describe what the camera is doing on paper? It seems tedious. Eventually, he'd learn that some ideas are meant for a novel. Hey, folks, that's where we are for now. Hey, Corey, what's going on? Appreciate y'all tuning in. how we got a 20-minute video, I guess, this time. That was a good reading. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. I don't know, see some chats in there. We got Hannes Jafar. Hope y'all are still here. I don't know. I can't see anybody anymore on there, but again, this is another reading from The Flower Maker, and we're keeping it going. Hopefully, people are enjoying it. We're getting closer and closer to the end of this notebook, at least, and still probably have a long way to go. Again, I put a link into the description so you can watch the playlist, and you can start from the beginning if you're behind, or you can catch up on anything. I'm trying to keep the amount of me talking like this as short as possible, so it's just the audiobook. But explaining a little bit about where we are. And there's also, again, the link for that missing chapter 10, which is the essay, which is the scientist's speech. If you really want to complete the full novel, you'll want to go to that and read that. I'd like to reread it, and do it more in the way the scientist's voice would be. But anyways, I mean, we've written that much so far of the book. That's how much we got left. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful afternoon or evening or wherever you are around the world. Hope you're getting into literature. Hopefully you're getting into art wherever you are. Anybody that is in here in the channel, you obviously, or in the chat, you obviously have channels of your own. So hopefully you're doing cool stuff out there. We're getting into the winter soon here at some point, but the Flower Maker keeps rolling on. We'll have another writing tomorrow. Who do we got here? Argentina. Hey, man. Welcome. Menino Lindo. Oh, that's not that hard. Menino Lindo. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. You can always scroll back and catch what I just said, of course. And like I said, I put the link, the playlist. This is Blurred Lens Pictures. I'm Brent Norrie, and this is the Flower Maker reading series. And I think this was part. Are we up to 11? All right. We'll see you next time.